yeah, uploaded in the YouTube as well because we'll actually do the argumentative essay for our final term exam. So today I'm going to let you know how to write the argumentative essay, and then the final term exam is to write a persuasive essay on global issues of your choice with a word limit 1,000 to like 1,200. So that's going to be your final exam assignment, okay? So, but I'll go through the step-by-step guide on how to write an argumentative essay. And this is very important because actually essay is the basis of your building up your argument. An argument is used not only for essay writing, but also presentation and also like, oral speech. It's basically used everywhere, so how to actually present your argument in a very effective way. So that's how, that's what we're going to do today. So think of it as not just as an essay writing, but more so as how you can actually build up your sort of argument, on any of the topics that you want to actually discuss. Okay, let's go to the first. All right, so obviously this doesn't work. Okay. Oh. Sorry, it's taking. Let's see whether it's working. Okay, let's start. What is an argumentative essay? Tongyong, can you read?
A structured piece of writing with a clear thesis and supporting argument.
Right.
Purpose: persuade readers about your stance on a debated global issue. Common in academic and policy discussions.
So what do you mean by argumentative essay? What do you mean by persuasive essay? Basically, you have to have a thesis statement. It's basically a statement, it can be one sentence or two sentences or even three sentences, but basically your thesis statement which includes on an opinion of your opinion on a given topic. Alright, so you always have to have your personal opinion included in the thesis statement. And of course, if it's to be a very effective persuasive argument or persuasive essay, you basically have to have a very good supporting sort of evidence. You can say, oh, I insist on this, but if you don't have any evidence, then it's not a good argument. So basically, argumentative essay, you have to have a very clear thesis statement and supporting sort of evidence to back up. And I'm just going to let you know what you can use for your supporting evidence. And the purpose is basically, you want to persuade the people that listening to you on your opinion. They will think that, oh, your opinion makes sense, and they will actually agree with you on a given topic. So this technique or this skill is very important because basically, whatever environment that you work, not only in your career, but in your relationship or like family matters, you basically, a lot of times you make your own argument and you want others to agree with you on a given topic, right? So this is basically an everyday skill that you need. So pay good attention to it because you will actually know how to do it. Okay, next page. Why do we focus on the global issues? This is pretty straightforward, but let's read it. Okay? Is it on?
Multiple countries and pollutions. Complexity. Involve politics, economics, environment, ethics. For example, climate change, migration, inequality, surveillance.
Right, so you will have to write a persuasive essay on a global issue. And what do you mean by global issue? basically it has to, your topic of interest or your topic of your argument or your essay should affect multiple countries and populations. I mean, it has to affect not only Korea or Japan, but like wider population around the world. That's what it means by global issue. And also, I mean, it can span from like politics to environment, economics, ethics, whatever disciplines that you're interested in. I mean, if you're interested in like climate change, which is a very important topic these days, I mean, you can actually choose it. But if you are interested in politics, say, war between Russia and Ukraine, you can choose one. But I mean, so the discipline itself doesn't really matter as much, but your topic should be relevant to many different countries and many different like populations and ethnicities. This is very important, okay? All right, so what are the key components of an argumentative essay? Who's next?
Introduction with thesis. Background context. Argument with evidence.
Counter-arguments?
Counter-argument and with
Refutation.
Conclusion with
Implications. Yes, so you basically have to include these 5 elements. And this is very important. Okay, I really want to emphasize again, this is not only about the essay writing. It's about how to build your own argument and present it in a nice way. Not only in the presentation, but when you deliver like a speech. Basically, you have to follow this sort of order. And if your speech or presentations or essays include those elements, then it proves that it's a really good argument. So the first is you basically have to introduce your argument, and I emphasize again, thesis statement includes your personal opinion on a topic, right? So you introduce your opinion at the introduction, but how do you do that? You basically provide a background or context about why this issue that you want to discuss is important. So after you deliver setting the context or the background, you basically go into stating your thesis statement. Basically, like clearly state your argument on the topic. And then what the body paragraphs do, I basically told you it'd be very nice to include at least 3 body paragraphs, but I think only like 4 people, like 5 people out of you had the body paragraphs. So yes. So basically, in the body paragraphs, you present supporting argument and supporting evidence on your thesis statement. So those body paragraphs basically have maybe 3 or 4 different arguments that back up or that support your thesis statement, and also those little arguments that back up your thesis statement. Each of them has evidence, and then those evidence can include like statistics, some historical backgrounds, or like opinions of the others, especially like influential people or newspaper articles. Those sources can vary, and I'm going to let you know what to include in those sources for the supporting evidence. And also, before you actually go into the conclusion, in the last body paragraph, normally for a very effective argumentative essay, they actually include counter-argument. What do you mean by counter-argument? Does anybody know? What do you mean by counter? Counterpunch. Counter. What do you mean by counter? Counter is basically, so if you have opinion A, a counter is the opposite view of the opinion A, all right? So the counter-arguments, some people say government surveillance. I mean, we covered this topic before, right? So a lot of you guys think government surveillance is bad. But one of my students actually says, oh, it's good. And she actually provided supporting evidence, arguing why it could be good, So, and that's a very good example of counter-argument, so opposing view. So why do you actually present an opposing view of your own argument? Because you want to present to the audience that you've actually looked through different opinions and different views and different perspectives on a given topic. So you have a very broad basis or a broad knowledge on a given topic, and you've considered them all. And then after you basically consider them all, you actually you came to your own conclusion. So it's to present your readers or your audience that you've actually studied enough about the given topic. So after presenting the counter-arguments, you basically say, oh, okay, so government surveillance can be good for the following way, but still it can have like negative effects, or it can have like very bad consequences for like larger populations for this and this region. So basically you present the counter arguments, but at the same time in the same paragraphs you provide why it doesn't work, and then by doing so you basically give the reader that you've actually considered like various perspectives on the given topic. And then after you discuss the counter argument and refutation is basically telling, oh, this doesn't work. And then you actually come into the conclusion. So this is the basic flow of an argumentative essay, but I'm gonna go over step by step how we can do it. All right, who's next?
Choosing a global issue.
Right.
Criteria, relevance, scope, visibility.
Right.
Sample topics, AI and jobs, vaccine distribution, digital surveillance.
Right, so we've discussed that it has to be relevant for like many countries and like different populations, and scope should not be confined in one country. But what do you mean by feasibility? Feasibility is basically whether you can build up the argument on a given topic. If the topic is too difficult for you to gather lots of information about it, even though you have the information, you basically find the topic too difficult to understand. So you find it very difficult to present the topic on an essay format, then it's not feasible. So feasibility means like not workability, whether you can work on it or not. So you have to always think about whether it's feasible, whether it's okay for me to study about this topic. All right. So these are the 3 different criteria that you have to think about when you choose a topic. And I just listed like really popular sample topics for like global issues, but you don't have to choose one of them. You can just come up with your own. Like if you're like into game industry, like or any of the topics that interest you, you can actually come up with it. So let's go to step 2 on the student worksheet. Let's skip the step 1 and let's go to step 2 here. It says choose your global issues, and basically it says choose a topic that has global relevance and complexity. So checklist is basically you think about the global impact of the topic that you want to write about, and whether it's current problem and it's debatable. Persuasive essay basically is a topic that has many opposing views. So that it has to be debatable. It should be a topic where a lot of people have different opinions. So they debate a lot on the topic. So government surveillance is a very debatable topic, right? And the last category, sufficient resources available, it's linked with a feasibility. So if you're very interested in the topic, so say, what can we, like I just came up with this idea. It's not an idea, but there's a large language model which is used a lot for like AI build-up, but there's a small language model which is called like vertical language model. But although I know this term, I don't really have the broad knowledge as to gather the right information for my topic. So in this case, it's not feasible, right? So, or if you are interested in this certain topic, but you just find it very difficult to gather enough information to write about the topic, then it's not feasible, okay? So you think about whether the topic that you're interested in has sufficient information that you can gather to use for your supporting argument. All right, so after think about those criteria, you write down your topic. okay, on a blank line. And then also why this topic is globally important. Write it down as well. Okay, let's do it now. Okay, this is gonna be your final assignment, final exam assignment. So, you can change, but we are actually doing this exercise for you to know how to write the essay in a systematic manner. Because I just feel that you haven't actually learned how to write a persuasive essay systematically. Okay, so when you choose a topic, think about whether it has a global impact, whether it's current and debatable, and whether it has sufficient resources that you can gather. That's original topic. It can be fashion related as well. Like, global supply chain, the fashion industry. So it doesn't have to be like politics or like economics. It can vary many like different areas or like disciplines. I'll give you 3 more minutes. We'll do the exercise based on this, so you really have to choose one, okay? You can change it later, but then for today, you have to choose one. Somebody wrote climate change, like poverty issue. If you are interested in AI, then you can do AI. A lot of people are doing climate change. So you were maybe war and conflict, international conflict. Yeah, the topic could be international conflict. Yeah, developing country. Yeah, then you just international conflicts. Yeah. Or global conflicts. Extreme weather. Culture distribution. picked a nice term for this, globalization and local culture. Oh, that's a very nice topic. That's a very important topic as well. Oh, this is very nice. Very nice. Nuclear weapon. This is very good. Best. Oh, this is very nice. Yes, this is linked with the global supply chain. Okay, economic inequality, imbalances. Alright. Oh, you don't have to write down reflected in here. So you just use it as evidence. Okay, the topic should be broad, so it doesn't have to be very specific. Indonesia becoming a global waste disposal center. Oh, this is a very nice topic, so maybe you can just write down global waste. Yeah. Global waste management. Oh, refugees. Yeah, refugees problem. Can I have a look? Oh, animal rights. Oh, sorry. US custom policy. This is good. Social media, good. Social media is really nice topic. So AI and overuse. Okay. Hate speech, good. Human rights, good. Refugee problem. This is refugees, well. Alright, can I have a look? This one? I can't see you. Fast fashion. This is what this is. So climate change. This is so maybe because if you just confine it to Korea, then it's not going to be global. So maybe you just cross out Korea as a low fertility problem because it's a global phenomenon, especially among the developed countries. No, nuclear weapons. All right, so you've done it very well. Like nice topics. Let's go to the next step. Whose turn is it? Is it Francis?
A 1 to 2 sentence central argument.
Oh, so it's actually how to craft a strong thesis, all right? Thesis statement. This is very important. So writing an effective thesis statement is the half the test done. This is very, very important.
Second one must be clear, debatable, and insightful.
Right.
Example, global surveillance threatens democratic values and must be regulated.
Right. So thesis statement is basically your opinion on a given topic, right? So it has to be either 1 or 2 sentences, okay? And it has to be clear. Oh, sorry. And then, what do you mean by debatable? It's on a very complex topic. So your thesis statement basically is an opinion. So somebody else should be able to debate on your opinion. Okay, it has to be controversial. And a lot of Asian students try to avoid controversies. You know, they try to avoid arguments with other people. So I think that's why we are not very used to writing a strong thesis statement, okay? But as I said before, and I want to really emphasize again, your thesis statement should be an argument. It's you're trying to persuade the others on your point. So it has to be controversial, okay? And insightful, you know, I mean, this is, I don't actually expect deep insight from you as of now, because you're only like freshmen, you know, college students. So, I mean, I gave you an example. Global surveillance threatens democratic values and must be regulated. This is very clear, and this is actually controversial because it actually argues that global surveillance is linked with that democratic values. And some people might say that, oh, surveillance issues linked with the technology only, so it's not linked with democratic or the political values at all, so we can't really argue in this way. So you know that this is what it means by debatable. You're basically presenting your argument, so somebody else will actually like, you know, raise his or her hand and then say a different opinion on this. All right, so let's go to step 3. It says write a one sentence, or you can write even 2 sentences. Write a one sentence thesis statement that clearly states your argument. And then your thesis, I think I gave you, one line, but you can actually just write 3 lines or 2 lines underneath. So write your thesis statement now. It has to be an opinion, okay? It has to be an argument. Don't write a fact. Don't write fact. Great. I really want to tell you that when I first took classes on writing an English essay, you know how to write English essay, my writing teacher, when I was in high school, his name was Mr. Murphy. He used to tell me that your first draft, your first paper, your first writing is meant to be rubbish. What do you mean by rubbish? Garbage. So don't think of your first version of writing too serious. You know, it's meant to be rubbish. I mean, you will actually revise your first draft again and again. So one of the very effective ways to avoid writing block is to think of your first draft as garbage. You know, you will actually throw it away and you will actually revise it again and again. So don't put too much sort of, not attention, but what would be the good word? Don't put too much seriousness, or like don't think that it's gonna be there forever. You will change and you revise. So, you know, just craft or make anything that you can do now, and then you always have a room of improvement for later. This is not an argument. This is a fact, right? The population is growing, but the birth rate is not finished. Good. Don't think about grammar too much. Just okay. Good. Good. Great. All right. Now what? Great. Okay. So this is your thesis statement. Great. This is good, all right? Okay, it's a very strong argument. That's good. So, I said refugees. Yeah, okay, this is so good. Yeah. We should not waste our resources. Would actually somebody disagree with this statement, do you think? Do you think anybody will actually, who has, somebody who can actually disagree with this statement? Has to be debated. Because this is like, this is an argument, but then everyone will actually say, oh, this, if they think the same, right? So this is not very debatable. So maybe choose more controversial topics for the thesis. This is more like a fact, right? So better, you can actually say U.S. customs policy is biased towards minorities. This is a debatable statement, but like U.S. customs policy is linked to the world. Nobody will actually disagree with this. So that's why it's not debatable. That's why it's not a basis. So right there, like one is, I gave you an example, but think about like other examples as well. Great. Who are they? Postage and remark. They are people will lose their ability to think themselves if they will say that. Alright, so we'll just replace it. Alright, this is good. See, so this is more like a topic. It has to be a sentence. So it has to include subject, verb, right? This is not a sentence. Right? And then, yeah, so write it down in the sentence. Okay, so I think this is a better thesis statement because it's more controversial. Okay? Great. Yeah. Good. Thesis statement doesn't end with a question mark. It always ends with a full stop, right? Because it has to be your opinion, right? So due to globalization, and then like diverse cultures affect one another. Do you think anybody will actually disagree with it, or like this is not very controversial? It's not very. You don't actually express the strong argument here. Okay, so maybe because it's due to globalization, local cultures, many elements of the local cultures are erased or being depleted. Like this can be a thesis statement, but you don't end the thesis statement with a question mark, and also it has to be in a strong argument. Okay, so write it down. Population is more. This is more like a fact, alright? So the birth rate is decreasing, right? Everybody will agree with this, right? So this is not a thesis statement. It has to be your opinion. The birth rate is decreasing. This is a fact among the developed countries, right? So you could say, in order to increase the birth rate, we have to accept more migrants. Yeah. Alright, so for a thesis statement, you can actually include should or ought to or must. A lot of the cases, because it's an opinion, and it has to be debatable. It should not be a fact. What do you mean by fact? Fact will be like a statement most of the people will agree with. Yeah. Did I go through this? Oh. Yep. All right, let's move on to the next page. So after you build a thesis statement, what do you have to do? Basically, with a thesis statement, you will write your first paragraph, which is an introduction. Okay, who's next? All right.
Book. Statistic question example quote. Context, brief, background, and significance. This is your main claim, and the intro with this. Keep it concise, 3 to 5 sentences.
Right, because I told you that you're going to write an essay whose length is about like 1,000 to 1,200. So that's why I told you that it'd be very nice if you could include 3 to 5 sentences. But it's according to the length of the assigned essay. So if you're supposed to write, like 4,000 essays, then the sentences, should include a lot more, right? So I recommend that you include 4 or 5 sentences in the introduction. And what do you have to include in the introduction? And normally, this is actually used for presentation as well. The first sentence should grab the attention of your readers, and that's called hook. And what can you use for your hook? A lot of times people use interesting statistics on the given topic. So say the birth rate, I think 2 of you are actually writing about the birth rate, the decreasing birth rate, and you can actually start your introduction with an astounding rate of low birth rate in Korea. If we actually maintain this rate, then we're gonna, I read in one of the articles that we're gonna be extinct by 2,300. Korea is gonna disappear. No population left. Because it's actually 1.7 nowadays. So I think after 25 years or so, there will be like 1-to-1 ratio, like older generation, like people who are over 60s, and like younger generation in their like 20s or like 30s. It's gonna be 1-on-1. So the younger generation would actually support the older generation. So it's a huge problem, you know. So you can actually start your introduction with a very interesting statistics, or yeah, a lot of, I mean, it's 2 or 3 of you guys actually wrote question mark. I mean, it's a question sentences, but you can use it as a hook, but not as a thesis statement. You know, you can actually start with a rhetorical question. Do we have to, I mean, don't we have to do something about the decreasing birth rate in Korea? You can actually start your introduction in this way. But then, like, questioning, it's a rhetorical question, needs a lot of skills. But I really recommend you that you basically include some interesting statistics or like quotes from like famous people, or like any example, like any anecdotes, stories, interesting stories that are related with your topic. So for presentation, you know, people actually start with the personal stories. You can start with the personal stories, but then, you know, it's a persuasive, I mean, it's a argumentative essay, so it's better to actually start with a fact or with the statistics. So after you use, you actually write down the first sentence, you know, to hook, to grab the attention. The second sentence is basically provides a brief background and, you know, tell the readers, you know, why you chose this topic, you know, why it's very important to discuss this topic. Obviously, you know, decreasing birth rate is very important because it is linked with the existence of the humanity, you know. A lot of people, politicians, Elon Musk, you know, like, they're so much worried about the existence of humanity. So, you know, basically for the second, third paragraphs, I mean, not the sentences in the introduction, you provide the background, or you basically set the context, you know, telling why discussing this topic is very important. And then, after this, you basically write down your thesis statement. Thesis statement, your argument, your opinion comes at the very end of the introduction. Okay? Alright, so let's go to step 4. Okay? So checklist, hook is basically a sentence that you are writing to grab the attention of your readers. You can use statistics or like rhetorical questions or any interesting stories or like quotes from like famous people. And then afterwards, you provide the background of I mean, like context, why, you know, discussing this topic is important, and your thesis statement at the end of the introducing paragraphs. Okay? Okay, let's do it now. All right, let's move on to the body paragraphs. So I think we're running out of time. Okay, I'm trying to actually go over the every step. I mean, so we're not going to have the role play today. We'll actually do all the elements, and, you know, at the end, we'll actually have all the information ready to write your essay. Okay, organizing, how to write the body paragraphs. Who's next?
Use field point evidence explanation link. Include at least 3 arguments. Address counterarguments with refutation. Use transitions. Furthermore, in contrast, add.
Yeah, so when you write down your body paragraph, try to include PEEL. These 4 elements in one paragraph. What do you mean by PEEL? So your point. So say, okay, I have a thesis statement which says we have to address the low birth rate immediately. This is my thesis statement, right? And you basically can have 3 arguments that support your thesis statement. So we have to address, you know, the low birth rate. So how can we do that? You know, we can address it by giving more subsidies to families planning to have babies. So that can be your first point, you know, your first point of argument. All right. And the second point of argument in the second body paragraphs can be what can be the second argument? All right. So we can have enhanced, we can give family benefits to, especially to the grandparents who are taking care of their grandchildren. You know, so that can be the second point of argument, which can be included in your second body paragraph. And then the third point can be included in the third body paragraphs. But for the third body paragraph, you can actually have a counter argument. Someone might say, you know, oh, it's not fair. It's not just to give benefits to families just because they're planning for babies. You know, we have to have more specific measures to see whether it's okay to give benefits or subsidies to those families, because we have invested so much money into addressing this, but no development has been made. So you know, just giving the benefits or financial benefits or giving more subsidies doesn't work to raise the birth rate. So it doesn't work. So this can be included in your last body paragraphs. So you know, your counter argument, opposing view to your thesis statement, and then you basically discuss why this counter argument doesn't work. So that can be your third body paragraphs. So in one paragraph, you basically state the first point of argument that supports your thesis statement, and then, you know, afterwards you basically provide the evidence. And evidence is the same. You basically provide the statistical sort of results, or you provide the sources of the credible authorities, you know, like UN statistics or any of the Korean research centers research, or quotes from any of the established figures. You know, so you provide the evidence for your first argument. And, you know, by providing those arguments, you basically say, okay, this argument, you know, is credible. Yeah, this argument holds. And then at the last sentence, you basically provide a link. What do you mean by link? You provide a transitional statement which leads you to the second point, a second point of argument. Okay, does that make sense? So that's, try to use, include all the appeal arguments in one paragraph, okay? And then basically you can have at least 2 or 3 arguments. So that's going to mean like you basically have 2 or 3 paragraphs in your body, but make sure that you include the counter argument, you know, counter argument, because it's very important to have a balanced view, you know. You've actually considered the opposing point of views, and you've actually thought about, you know, their arguments and their evidence, and afterwards you still think your argument is better, you know. So this is just to prove that, you know, argument is stronger than the other positions or than the other opposing views. All right, and you can basically use transitional sort of phrases such as furthermore, in contrast, on the contrary, however, you know, to start different paragraphs. All right. So let's do this now. We can go to step 5, and basically it has how many? All right, 3 paragraphs. So for the first 2 paragraphs, you write down 2 arguments that support your thesis statement. But for the third paragraph, you include counter argument and say or argue why the counter argument to your thesis statement does not hold. Okay, let's start. You can ask me questions if you find it really difficult. Okay, because we are running out of time, let's skip the body part and we can come back later. Okay, let's go to the conclusion. Who's next?
Restate the thesis in different words.
Right.
Summarize main arguments. Highlight global significance. End with a call to action or final insight.
Right. So it's basically the other way around for introduction. So for conclusion, you basically have to restate your thesis statement again, but in a slightly different manner. So you paraphrase what you have written for your thesis statement, and then you end the conclusion with the thesis statement in different words, and basically recap or summarize your main arguments. So we had 3 main arguments, including the counter-arguments. So in the conclusion, you basically state your 2 supporting arguments and 1 counter-argument. And after you restate or you recap those 2 supporting argument and 1 counter-argument, you try to navigate the common ground or the neutral ground to compromise the opposing views. And then you basically, as we did in the introduction, you say, okay, because of this, this issue of AI or this issue of low birth rate has a global significance. And this is very important, especially with a global issue, you end your conclusion with a call to action. So you basically say, okay, to increase the birth rate across the globe, we need to have awareness, rising awareness about the issue. So we have to have an international campaign, to raise the awareness of the low birth rate across the world. So this can be an example of a call to action. But so this part is very important. So it's the other way around. The structure basically is the other way around of the introduction. You restate the thesis statement in a paraphrased way, and then you basically recap your 2 supporting arguments and one counter argument. You summarize it and compromise them together, and then you end the conclusion with a call to action. All right, so let's take a break for 5 minutes, and after we come back, we'll write down the conclusion and also the body paragraphs together. I have a few more points that I want to go over with you. So if you have enough time, then we'll go over them together. Okay, let's take a break.